Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today as we talk about land banking in New Jersey. We won't get into the long history of advocacy around this, but you are here because you have expressed interest in developing this tool for vacant and abandoned properties in our neighborhoods. This stemmed from the landmark 2019 legislation that was signed into law, and now here we are trying to make sure that land banking is a real opportunity in our communities. We're working closely with the Center for, my name is Matthew Hirsch. I'm the Director of Policy and Advocacy at the Housing and Community Development Network of New Jersey. And we're going to be kicking it off with the folks from Center for Community Progress as they are known as, who are really helping to take the reins and lead the land banking process to the next step in the state. They've met with several of you and spoken with many network members about the challenges, obstacles, and opportunities that land banking presents in their communities. And this is the second webinar in this current two-part series to help shine the light on this policy that we think is going to be very valuable. So in the spirit of time, thank you for joining us, and we'll kick off to Liz from Community Progress. Hey, Liz.
Hi, Matt. Thanks so much, Matt, and everybody for joining us. It's nice to see familiar names that have joined us for part 2 of this Land Banking in New Jersey webinar series. So I'm Liz Koza. I serve as the Associate Director of our National Technical Assistance Team. For those of you that were not on our first call, just some background about the Center for Community Progress. We are a national nonprofit that works all across the country, really helping communities focus attention on addressing vacant, abandoned, and deteriorated properties and repurposing them in line with community uses. So since 2008, we've worked with over 300 communities across the country. We specialize in tools and systems that prevent vacancy, but that also can be leveraged to support reuse of properties in line with those community goals. So we often work with communities on issues of code enforcement, of delinquent tax enforcement, of data management, vacant land reuse. And we are kind of the national leaders in land banking across the country, having helped nearly all 17 states in the island of Puerto Rico pass their state enabling land bank legislation, and also support land banks across the country through our national land bank network. So as Matt mentioned, in our first session, we provided an overview of the advocacy efforts of many of you on the call and the network and legislative leaders to really get a land bank enabling legislation and the tool for New Jersey communities to access to address inventories of vacant and abandoned properties. We also provided a national perspective on kind of what land banks are, how communities have leveraged them, the impacts that communities have realized because of this tool as kind of guidance of the field and what's come before folks in New Jersey that are interested in exploring land banks. We also talked about the key provisions to the New Jersey land bank law. Each state that has state enabling legislation does it a little differently. And so there's some key factors in New Jersey that we discussed that folks should be aware of. And we also discussed the opportunities and challenges that exist for New Jersey communities. So if you were not able to join us for that first session, I really encourage you to watch the presentation. The link's provided on the slide deck, which you'll receive in a follow-up. It's also on the network's website under their land bank page so that you can access it there. But for today's presentation, I'm really excited to introduce our friend Martha Biaz at the Newark Land Bank, who has she serves as Senior Vice President of Land Bank Operations for Invest Newark, which was the entity that was appointed by the city of Newark to operate the land bank. And Martha really is the leading land bank expert in the state of New Jersey, because the Newark Land Bank is the only land bank that exists today, and she has a wealth of information and lessons learned about the Newark Land Bank that she's going to share with us. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and Martha, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you everyone for being here today. So let me go ahead and share my screen. If I can see my screen. Okay. Okay, so welcome everyone. I'm Martha Biaz, Senior Vice President of Operations, Land Bank Operations at Invest Newark. I have been in the municipal land disposition business for about 18 years. I started with the city of Newark in 2006, where I learned about municipal land disposition, all land transferring and auction processes. And as of 2021, I am the Senior Vice President of Land Bank Operations here. So I've been doing this for about 2 years now. My goal today is to share as much of the knowledge that I have gained while operating the land bank, and in the hopes that there will be more land banks in New Jersey in the near future. So most of you that were in the presentation that happened in last month learned about or heard about the New Jersey Land Bank law, which was passed in 2019 to allow cities in New Jersey to be able to form land banks, specifically municipalities in New Jersey. And in the same year, the Newark Land Bank, who has been a champion of the land bank law, our leadership in Newark, our mayor, our legislative people in Newark were very wanted to have this law passed because of the benefits that could bring our municipality. So in 2019, in October, the municipal council approved the land bank law. They approved the formation of the Newark Land Bank. In 2020, then the city decided which entity was going to be the entity to hold the land bank and appointed Invest Newark as the land bank entity. And the same year, through a trust agreement, the municipal council approved the transfer of the first tranche of properties for the land bank. And finally, in March of 2021, the Newark Land Bank was launched by the city of Newark and Invest Newark. So let's talk about the activities that happen in the land bank to help us achieve the goals that we have set out for ourselves. So acquiring the acquisition, maintenance, and disposition of properties, that is the most important aspect of our land bank, and that helps with rating the liabilities that have been left in our neighborhoods and community because of the vacancy and abandonment. Abandoned and vacant properties give ways to crime. We all see some of the crimes happening in vacant dwellings, drug use, etc. They create unsafe and unsightly conditions to our neighborhoods, usually affecting the health of our neighborhoods. So the first task in the activities is the acquisition of the properties, acquiring title to these properties. Specific to our Newark Land Bank, and most of the land banks do it this way, we get all of our properties from the tax foreclosure system. So properties that have been foreclosed are transferred to the land bank. We have other options. We accept donations. We can do property swaps, and we also can acquire property through the private sector. So right now we only have the property being transferred from the city, but we have the ability to accept donations on our website. There's a form that anyone interested in donating their property can fill out. We also have we have the ability to do property swaps, and I think we had some conversations with the local housing authority to see if we can swap some properties. And we also are looking into private acquisition. It's not the easiest thing to do for a land bank. We don't have that much funds, but if there's an opportunity for us to do so, we are looking into that. The second task, I should say, is the property management. So we are tasked with maintaining these properties. As soon as we get them, we secure them, we clean them, we assign a maintenance company to this property that will regularly monitor them and keep them safe and clean to enhance our neighborhoods, make sure that we get rid of any problems that these properties can cause. After we get the properties and we secure them, then we need to dispose of them. We have I have a strategic reuse at the end, but before we sell them, we allocate them into programs. So we think about what is the best use for this property. And after we determine that, then we make sure we dispose of the properties and put them back into the community. So we prefer to sell them to community residents, local businesses, and nonprofits. We do this, to stimulate our population to become homeowners and also allow our local economy to flourish by giving properties or selling property to local businesses. Let's talk about the acquisition process. So this process that you see on the screen, you probably are familiar with this process because it's a mostly standard process for municipalities to dispose of properties. So first, the agency holding the properties will select the properties. In our case, it's the Department of Economic and Housing Development, would, through the Office of Property Management, select the properties that will be transferred to the land bank. Then legislation is prepared and is taken before the municipal council to be authorized. Once the municipal council authorizes these properties to be transferred to the land bank, the next step is for that department to prepare the deeds and all the documents that are required for the execution and have the director of the department approve these deeds. Then the legal department has to approve them. City clerk then certifies them. And finally, the transfer is complete. So we kind of do it at closing by getting the deeds over to the land bank. But this process was not at a streamline. There's a lot of things that happen. Like each side has a preference of how they want to do this business. And also, you need to work on building that trust with the municipality. What I mean by this is we are fortunate enough in the city at Invest Newark to have the city of Newark champion the land bank, and we have the leadership in the city of Newark that's invested in making this work. But not every department knows how the land bank works and what it takes for us to do what we have to do on this side. So education of those different departments and conversations with them is very important to make sure that they understand what you're trying to achieve. And then when it's time for you to go through any process that requires anyone's signature in the city or anyone to move a process, then they'll be more inclined to work with you. And that will make the process easier for everybody. So we have, as I mentioned before, we have priorities or goals in the land bank that are focused in the most pressing problems that vacant and abandoned properties create in our community. So our most important goal, I say, is to boost homeownership. Some of you might know that the homeownership rate in the city of Newark is low. It's about 24%. So we're trying to increase that to at least 40%. We do this by, utilizing some of our properties to create homeownership and programs. These in turn helps us in the reduction of blight, which, as I said, properties cost, vacant properties that are blighted cause problems with the community. So we, one of our priorities is to reduce that blight. Once we rehab and sometimes put our properties for sale that get built, we help with the creation of market rate and affordable housing rate. We increase minority and women developer and subcontractor capacity. But we also contribute to the local economy when we have properties that we rehab ourselves. We employ local contractors who in turn would employ local residents, and we'll use our local vendors to do the job. So that increases our economy. And also putting the property back into the tax roll is very important to the municipality, as it also stimulates the city's economy. This contributes to expansion of neighborhood business opportunities. We have policies that allows nonprofits and local businesses to to buy a property from the land bank to use for their business. Of course, increasing property values is important. Once we put a property back into the community that is rehabbed, immediately the value of the properties around it go up, which helps everyone. It helps with supporting community goals, making sure that we have safer and cleaner neighborhoods, and overall improving the quality of life for Newark residents. So let's talk about the opportunities that we have created in the Newark Land Bank. And for our goal of boosting homeownership, we have been very intentional in creating homeownership that is equitable for the residents of Newark. Some of you might have heard in the last webinar or on other occasions of our signature. I call it our signature homeownership program, which is the Section 8 homeownership conversion program. We are the only land bank in the country offering this program. This program is for qualified Section 8 voucher holders that can convert their voucher into a mortgage voucher and use it along with down payment assistance from the city. They can use that voucher to purchase a single family home. For this program, we partner with the Newark Housing Authority that selects or helps the qualified Section 8 voucher holders to try and convert their vouchers. And then Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America is also our partner, NACA. They work with the individuals to prepare them to get pre-approved for a mortgage. And the mortgages that they get are issued by Bank of America. Bank of America also, partners with NACA, and they have developed a product for these mortgages. Another program that we are proud of is our Moving Ready program. In this program, we offer homes for sale to buyers that are within 80% of median income. And these houses, we offer them already renovated by local developers and contractors who partner with us. And we recently launched a municipal employee Moving Ready program, which we are reserving a number of homes that will be specifically for municipal employees, as we think that a lot of our employees don't own homes, and we want to help them become homeowners as well. Other programs that we have in the land bank, these are the Pro Newark, which stands for Purchase, Renovate, Occupy, and the Resident Advantage program. These two programs are offered to qualified residents and non-residents who wish to purchase a home and renovate it themselves and occupy the land bank property. So what we do is we ask people that are interested in purchasing a home to rehab it. They need to partner with a licensed contractor, and that will help them through the process if they are not a contractor themselves. We don't have a lot of these properties available because it is a very hard thing to do for someone to just purchase a property to renovate it. But there are a few people in the city that want to do that, so we give them the opportunity to do so. Additionally, we have a side lot initiative. So some of the properties we acquire from the city are too small to build. They are classified, and we classify them as side lots. The side lot program allows us to sell these lots to contiguous property owners for a nominal consideration. So the buyers can use these lots to increase their yard space, build a driveway, install a driveway, or add an addition to their home where permissible. Side lots can also be used for gardens, and we recently just created a policy for that. So included in this side lot initiative, we allow organizations to buy these lots for gardening. So let's dig into some other uses. For vacant lots, we can sell them. We can do straight sales on our website, usually for developers and contractors. and most of the time we issue RFPs. These are competitive sales that are typically awarded to the most qualified bidder. These projects can range from a single-family home to a multi-dwelling building or mixed-use commercial residential building. The way that we evaluate these programs or these bids, we look for experience, financial capacity, and the best use of the property. Ultimately, what serves best the community. The Newark Land Bank, as I said before, also works with nonprofit organizations and local businesses who are currently working to enhance the quality of life for Newark residents. So anyone that specifically has a program that is helping advance the goals of our city is able to purchase a property from us for their business. Now let's look at some of the requirements we set in place to ensure that we are achieving this goal. So we ask our buyers, we ask them to demonstrate the ability to purchase, rehab, and occupy these homes for a specific period of time. So if anyone applies to purchase a home, whether it is a home that we rehab or a vacant lot, you need to demonstrate your ability to purchase it, have your funds, or have secure a loan or a pre-approval for mortgage. If you are a contractor looking to renovate a home, you need to demonstrate the ability to rehab the home. And also, you have to be willing, if it's a home, to stay in the property for a specific period of time. So I should say that all of these requirements are spelled out in our policies, which are posted on our website. We also look for experienced and qualified developers who can partner with investors or other entities that are invested into equitable economic growth and efficient development. We want our potential buyers to be willing to occupy. If there are businesses, they have to be willing to occupy commercial properties, and they can be also local nonprofits in our community. What we don't want our buyers to have is unremediated code violations. So every time you submit an application for the land bank, we're going to check. We're going to check if you are a homeowner and you're trying to purchase a side lot, or you're trying to purchase a vacant lot. We will check that you don't have any code violations, that you haven't remediated with the city. We also going to check that you have no delinquent taxes, so your taxes need to be up to date. And we also want to make sure that you haven't been into any, lost a property to any in-rent foreclosure proceedings. And if you are a developer, we make sure that you move on your projects. We don't want to see any stalled development projects. So all of these requirements, as I said, are spelled out in our policies and procedures and are posted on our website. So additional requirements we have for the applications and purchase agreements, we require a fee and earnest deposits. So anyone coming to our website to apply for a property, when they are available for sale, we have to pay an application fee for that property. And then we require a deposit once a contract has been signed. If we have enough properties, or we would allow up to 10 properties in one transaction, but not more than 10 properties. And that probably would be in the form of an RFP. We arrange all of our closings, and we aim to take no more than 90 days. So usually for the first 30 days from application to the signing of the contract, it would take 30 days. And after that, we have a strict 60 days requirement to close. Things happen sometimes, but we aim to close within 60 days, and we are pretty successful in that. For side lots, we do it in 30 days. And if you're familiar with the municipal disposition process, this way is much faster, and that's one of the benefits that cities have in creating a land bank. They can allow for the transfer of properties to happen quicker, as opposed to the whole process that they have to go through if the property is being disposed by the municipality. So another requirement that we have is to hold the deeds in escrow until projects are completed, or we impose these restrictions to ensure that the buyers uphold to the commitment that they get into, and that the developers, if they're constructing, they also abide to the timeline that we impose of them. And we check on these developments whenever we sell a vacant lot, or we have through a straight sale or an RFP. We have a monitoring process that we make sure that, you know, that they are working in a timely manner to complete their projects. So, you know, sometimes that permitting process can take a long time, so we account for that. We actually have built a good relationship with the municipality and the permits department, the engineering office that oversees permits and also code enforcement. We have built a good relationship, and we have created a tracking system where we know when one of our properties is sold, or we're starting renovation in one of our properties, we let them know that these properties will be requiring permits. And as soon as those permits hit the office, they'll put it in their tracking. So we know at every time where the permit is. And sometimes we are able to move them a little quicker. Not that we have any special treatment, but having that relationship to allow for, you know, for us to know that the developer is not stalling, but that they are taking time in the permits process. And sometimes we can, you know, try and get them moved a little faster. We also reserve the right to revert any property. So if you're not complying with the conditions of sales that we impose, you're not communicating with us, we don't know what you're doing, then we have that spelled out in our deeds and contracts that we will be reverting the property back to our inventory. We haven't had any problems so far. We have been able to work with everyone that purchased a property, making sure that they abide to their schedule in rehabbing or constructing a new project. So our entire inventory is on our website. If you haven't been to our website, you can log in and check all of the properties that we have. We are required by the legislation to list all of our properties. So whenever, you know, you go into the site and you look at a property, it will tell you the status of the property. It was sold, it's under contract, it's under review, the application, or is simply not available for sale yet, or if it's open for sale. So all the properties stay in the website. No matter what happens to them, you will always be able to see what we've done and what we have available. Now, it is important to have oversight to ensure an equitable process, ensure that we keep ourselves accountable. And how do we do it? Well, we have checks and balances in place to make sure that we are achieving all of our goals. So the InvestNorth staff is charged with administering the land bank, including all acquisition and disposition of properties. And we have the InvestNorth Board of Directors, which also provides oversight to the land bank. So the Board of Directors is comprised with private and public leaders and economic and real estate development professionals. The land bank also is required to produce a quarterly report to the Newark Municipal Council on all of our activities. And finally, very important, we have a community advisory board that is comprised of leaders of the community, nonprofits, etc. And they provide input into our programs. And they also serve, I think the most important, they serve as a liaison with the community, and they inform both the community and ourselves of, you know, what's going on in the community in terms of property, what's needed, and they do this on an ongoing basis. So that's all I have on the operation. So I wanted to just share these pictures of one of the homes that we rehabbed for our Section 8 program. So this is the house in various stages of the rehab process. This property was in the inventory of the city of Newark for many years. was an eyesore to the community. The picture on the left is actually after we transferred the property, and we had already like cut the grass. It was like all the way high. So I didn't have a picture of the very first condition of the property, but throughout the rehab process, some of the pictures, and then this is our final product. So the home is a single family home. It was sold to a Section 8 voucher recipient, which is a very happy recipient. The house was built, or it was rehabbed by a local nonprofit, Youth Build. So we have achieved different goals through this transaction. So we put the property back into reuse, we put it back in the tax roll, we allow a local nonprofit to rehab the properties. And this local nonprofit Youth Build, they have apprentice program for youth that so this was done by young men that are learning the trade of rehab and construction, and they did a terrific job. Another example of the our properties that we conveyed. So we sold this vacant lot to a developer, and this is various stages of the the construction of a single family home, actually a 2-family home, by this minority developer. This is the final product. This was done by Harsh Realty. That was the developer that purchased the property. It took them 12 months to do this new construction, which it was pretty fast. It's a 2-family home, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. It has a finished basement and a roof deck, which is a really cool feature. When we toured the property, we were really, really impressed by the finishes, and that the deck was like the best feature for me. This is a picture of our website. I will, before these slides get sent to all of you, I will make sure to have the website address on the top. I just realized I didn't have it there, but if you come to our website, you're able to see all the properties we currently have. You can search by program. You can also and read about each of the programs. You can also go to the resources tab and look at our policies and procedures. And I just so you know, soon we'll have a new face for our website, so we're working on. So if you don't go now, if you will go in a couple of weeks, you'll see a new face of our website. If you have questions, this is our contact information, email, and there's a phone number also on the slide, but I'll provide direct contact for the slide deck so that you can have my contact information if you have any additional questions after today's presentation. That's all I have.
All righty. Thank you so much, Martha. That was excellent. You shared a lot of really helpful information, not just about the programming, but how the Newark Land Bank was able to be established. So really appreciate you for doing that. I was so excited to turn it over to Martha that I forgot to share my agenda slide. So we're going to pause and take a few questions for Martha and the Newark Land Bank. And then afterwards, after a few questions, we'll talk a little bit about the scholarship opportunity that Community Progress and the network has. So I'd encourage you to put questions in the chat or use the raise hand feature if you have a question for Martha. But there was a question that I wanted to just kick off the conversation with Martha. And it was related to what you said about building trust with local government partners and taking the time to really serve as an educator of what the land bank is and how it can function. And we've heard that from almost every partner we've worked with across the country, in that there could potentially be some hesitation, there's some politics involved, that folks are unsure of how to navigate. And when the Community Progress and the network team talked with over 20 folks across the state of New Jersey, that came up as something that folks were interested in learning more about and figuring out how to navigate. So do you have any thoughts on or lessons learned from the Newark Land Bank on navigating some of those challenging conversations and the politics surrounding kind of the land bank's operation, especially in these early years, because the land bank is new. Newark is charting the path for land banks in New Jersey. So I would imagine there was some kind of unsuredness of what the land bank could do in terms of of operations?
Sure. So it's not easy, but it isn't too hard either. I think it's important to have that conversation with everyone in the municipality that the land bank has to work with. As I said before, so our leaders in the city of Newark, that are champion for the land bank, has done a really fantastic job of helping us thrive. But it gets a little bit difficult when you have to deal with different departments for different aspects of what you need to get done. So talking, setting up those meetings early, especially with the permits office, that was like a really good one, that we have that relationship with them. Oh. Also with the code enforcement office, because often, when we are trying to secure these properties or trying to clean them out, there's people in the community that are not really, they don't know what's going on. So they put some resistance, and sometimes we have to get code enforcement involved to help us get through that and help secure the property. Talking to the legal department, because it's new, the process is new, and they are used to doing it a certain way. We're trying to do it differently to be more efficient. And then we have certain powers that the legislation gives us to do these things. So they also need to know that. And it's not enough for you to tell, oh, here's the legislation, just read it. That's not going to happen. You have to have the conversation with people so that they know what you're doing and they could see it. And even the people that are working at the most critical level, which is selecting the properties and preparing the document, because they need to understand why they're doing this and why it is important for them to work expeditiously, so that we can get this process, to happen in an efficient manner.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I'm going to pull a question from the chat. There's two related questions. First is, what is the deposit amount that's necessary to purchase a land bank property? And what financial criteria do buyers, or what financial criteria do you look at in terms of determining an eligible buyer?
So whenever someone applies to purchase a property from the land bank, they have to have the resources to do so. So we don't offer, so we're not checking for credit or anything like that, because it is understood that you have to do that before you come to purchase. You have to have a pre-approval for a loan or for a mortgage, depending on what you're purchasing. If you're purchasing a property to be rehab, we recommend a 2 or 3K loan, which is, what allows you to rehab the property. If you're trying to purchase a home that's already been renovated, you need to have a mortgage pre-approval unless you have your own funds. And also for any other property that you're trying to purchase a lot, you need to demonstrate you have the money to purchase the lot and you have the money to do the construction or the financing to do the construction. That's what we look at. All applications is $50 fee for the application, but for vacant land, it's $150. What was the other part of the question? Did I cover everything?
Oh, yeah, you did. And the deposit that's required.
Also, the deposit. So if you're purchasing with your own fund, is $1,000, and if it's actually, I'm sorry. If you're purchasing with your own funds, it's 15% of the price. If you're purchasing with financing, it's $1,000.
Thank you. So Martha's going to stick around for our optional office hours that are happening at 2 o'clock. I'm going to transition to talking about the scholarship opportunity that we have. And Mike, I do see your question in there about land banks having special powers and abilities for acquisition. We cover that a bit in our first session, but yes, the state enabling land bank legislation, the land bank law in New Jersey allows for special powers for the land bank. Those powers are specifically granted in the land bank agreement between the municipality and the land bank. That would outline what those acquisition opportunities are and what those disposition powers are as well. As Martha shared, oftentimes land banking is a real benefit because it could be a more efficient way to transfer properties And land banks can transfer properties to end uses that align most with community needs and least with some of the, the highest bid, or to recoup some other type of funding. So I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the scholarship opportunity that Community Progress and the network are very excited to share with you all. Then I'll answer some questions about that, and then we'll have some optional office hours in the last 30 minutes if folks continue to have questions. So a land bank is a public entity that has unique powers to acquire vacant, abandoned, and deteriorated properties and put them back into productive use. And determining whether or not a land bank could be the right tool to advance some of your local goals is really the first step in terms of thinking about whether it's worth pursuing a land bank and having kind of the conversations and resources devoted to it. So understanding your community's inventory of what those vacant and abandoned properties are is really important to determine whether or not a land bank is the right tool, or maybe it's code enforcement, or maybe it's some other funding and partnerships that's needed. So this includes the scale and scope of properties, and also what the economic conditions are within those neighborhoods that have vacant and abandoned properties. We discussed in our last session that the vast majority of land banks get their inventory through that delinquent tax enforcement process. And we also talked that one of the challenges for New Jersey communities is the quickly appreciating real estate markets, and how many of the leaders on the call shared that they had been competitive in that delinquent tax and the tax lien sale process in the past, but with the appreciating real estate markets are finding that they're less and less competitive, and a land bank will find itself in a similar situation. So understanding the data behind that tax sale process is really important. And also what the existing public inventory of vacant and abandoned properties are. So Martha shared that the Newark Land Bank is currently getting the majority, if not all, of their inventory from properties that the city of Newark currently owns. And there's an agreement to transfer those properties to the land bank for the land bank to steward them and find appropriate end uses for them. So that is another place to look when determining if a land bank could be a right tool. And also, one of land bank's strongest powers is their ability to dispose of properties in a flexible manner that's in line with community goals. And again, to your question, Mike, that those powers are outlined in the agreement between the municipality that appoints the land bank and then the land bank entity. On your screen are just a few places of where you can start to look to determine what the possible pipeline for a land bank is to be able to access those properties, and can take a look at that as you're reflecting on your desire to apply for the scholarship application. So, as mentioned, Community Progress and the network over the next year are going to be providing technical assistance support to 2 communities in New Jersey that are interested in exploring and or implementing a land bank. Each scholarship will include technical assistance hours from both of our teams of legal experts and practitioners to help you all think through whether or not a land bank can be helpful and how it could potentially be implemented. This will also include a 2-day site visit from our teams to really dig deeper into conversations with key elected leadership, administrative leadership, stakeholders, residents that are most affected by vacancy and abandonment, CDC leaders, to understand the universe of challenges and opportunities that exist and have those kind of robust data gathering and conversations around that. We'll also provide a written deliverable that kind of outlines our recommendations, our key observations, and thoughts for moving forward. We've also included an opportunity to receive additional funding specifically for stakeholder engagement for those communities that are interested in implementing a land bank. So we know from our work all across the country that community members most impacted by vacancy and abandonment often have the least amount of time and resources to participate in the decision-making process. So as part of this opportunity, we'll discuss what additional funding could look like for community-based organizations and those that are serving resident groups to provide more education and engagement around the land bank. So we work with, in all of our engagements, really tailor our work with communities to best fit the unique needs of each community, the unique challenges, the political realities, kind of the stakeholders that are at the table. But we also wanted to provide some understanding of what we mean by technical assistance and what could potentially be offered through this engagement. So we've provided a few examples that are part of the application. And we ask while you're completing the application that you check which one you think might be most valuable to your community. And this will also help us to better understand kind of where you're at in the process. So the first is consensus building and just taking a deeper focus on education. As Martha mentioned in her remarks, education is critical throughout establishing a land banking. It's not just necessary for some of those decision makers, but also for the individual staffs at municipalities and CDCs and other stakeholders that will be engaged in the land banking process at some point. So in all of our engagements, there will be some light touch education that's provided, but this kind of consensus building and education is really focused on communities that are interested in a deeper dive and a concentrated campaign, educational campaign about what land banks are and how they can be helpful. A second option is an assessment of the systems that touch vacant and abandoned properties, taking a look at your current policies that are on the books in your individual communities, having conversations around programs, what's working, what's not working, to better understand what the current practices are to address vacant and abandoned properties, what the current inventory is and potential pipeline for a land bank to tap into to allow it to be successful, and then determining whether or not a land bank could be a useful tool. And then the third one that's listed on your screen is really for those communities that have done a lot of that research, that are committed to launching a land bank and are really looking for some technical and legal advice on how exactly to do that. So I've mentioned a few times that the land bank agreement is absolutely foundational for how a land bank will work. And so this technical assistance could be tailored to thinking about what that land bank agreement could look like, its framework, and how the land bank would interact with other municipal policies, departments, and other stakeholders within the community. So if you're selected to be a recipient of the technical assistance, you're not bound to whatever option that you select in your application, but this will provide us an understanding of kind of where you're at, what would be most helpful, and then we'll have those conversations to determine and scope out what the engagement would look like. So in New Jersey, municipalities create a land bank by appointing an existing entity to serve as that land bank, as the city of Newark has done with Invest Newark. So for this application, the eligible applicants are listed on your screen. Municipalities can apply because they are the ones with kind of the authoritative power to create a land bank. But we also encourage applications from those agencies and organizations that may want to serve as the land bank in the future. So municipal redevelopment agencies, county improvement entities, or nonprofit organizations. We also heard through our conversations with a lot of the folks that are on the call that it might not make sense for a single municipality to appoint a land bank as like the single land bank to serve their municipality, because there might not be that big of an inventory, but there are some really problematic properties that they could use some help and interventions with, or the municipality just might not have the capacity to support a land bank on its own. So we also encourage a coalition of nonprofit organizations to apply, to think through what a land bank that can serve multiple municipalities could potentially look like. And as part of the application, we will require that a letter of support from the mayor's office be submitted as kind of supplemental materials for the application. And during our one-on-one conversations with many folks on this call, we heard that there's still some lack of knowledge around what a land bank is, potentially some hesitation from local government leaders around, how it would function and how it would operationalize and how much local government would potentially have to fund a land bank. And just want to share that we've heard a lot of those concerns from communities all across the country, whether we're working in land banks in New York State and Pennsylvania, Michigan. Those are concerns that we've heard before. So I just want to share that while we can't avoid politics, like we definitely have to take in the political realities of a place. I don't want folks on the call to be discouraged if the municipal partner is not the one that's kind of out there with the megaphone just yet. Our team of legal experts and practitioners have navigated some of those challenging conversations with leaders all across the country. And so while we do need the municipal partner at the table, they have the authority to appoint the land bank, and we will need them to provide us some information and data and conversations around key systems. There's opportunities for us to kind of build that consensus with them throughout this engagement. So since this will be a no-cost scholarship opportunity for the selected applicants, there are some things that we will require of our partners if selected for the program. And it is primarily a commitment of time and just agreeing to kind of serve as a partner with Community Progress and the network throughout this engagement. So that will include coordinating documents and materials and data sets that we might ask of you to be able to analyze the pipeline of properties and how policies and systems are currently working. Likely include recurring meetings with our point of contact, our project team, and importantly, helping to arrange and make connections for virtual meetings with key decision makers and stakeholders, and also helping to develop the site visit logistics when we come out to your community. The selection criteria is pretty straightforward. We're really looking for those that are interested in exploring a land bank and learning more. I talked a little bit about the letter of support that's needed from the mayor's office, and just want to reiterate that we're not requiring folks commit to implementing a land bank at this point in time. This is really an opportunity for us to build consensus, explore how it could work, and then share some recommendations if a land bank is an appropriate tool, and if it is, how it could potentially be implemented in your community. So we also want to make sure that there is some level of challenges with vacant and abandoned properties. That's a land bank's sole focus, is to really address those properties that are causing harm, and that's where their powers come into play. If your community doesn't have a ton of those properties, we can certainly talk about whether or not a land bank would be helpful, but it's likely that its powers diminish as those vacant properties inventory diminishes within your community as well. We're looking for folks that have a demonstrated track record of partnerships and that are committed to advancing equitable and inclusive community development. So on your screen is the timeline for key application events. So today we're officially launching the application. I'll put a link in the chat for a scholarship information PDF. Apologizing for not doing that before I started talking. But we're providing a sneak peek to the folks that registered for these webinar series tomorrow. So you'll receive more information about the application, links to the SurveyMonkey, which is where the application will be hosted, and additional guidance and support for filling out that application. And that'll be due on November 17th. We plan to notify all applicants as to whether or not they've been selected by the end of the year. And then the technical assistance and engagements will really start in earnest in the beginning of 2024 and carry out through the first half of the year. So that was a quick run through of the application. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and put in a link to that PDF. And Matt, while I'm doing that, I'm going to turn it over to you to share a little bit about the Under One Roof conference, if that's okay.
Thank you, Liz. This was great. Thank you, Martha. I am going to put a link in the chat right now here. This is a plug, but it's a helpful one. We had the network has its annual Under One Roof conference coming up on October 20th at the Hyatt in New Brunswick, and featured there will be a panel discussion specifically on land banking. And Tarek is joining us. So thank you so much to Community Progress once again for really helping lead this effort. And they will be there to answer any questions, and you'll be able to hear, from a lot of municipalities in New Jersey will be represented who are interested in land banking, and we'll be able to hear some of those challenges and obstacles. Just another point of interest, we will have the new DCA Commissioner, Jacqueline Suarez, who will be keynoting the conference. So if you're interested, please join. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But that's my piece for now.
Thanks, Matt. So I ran through that fast. I am happy to answer any questions about the scholarship opportunity. If folks have them, please put them in the chat or feel free to raise your hand. Or if you have any additional questions for Martha and the Newark Land Bank, please feel free to add those as well.
I would also welcome Liz, Martha, Matt. If anyone wanted to stay on past 2 and share back with us, is there something you heard from Martha that makes you more excited or more apprehensive about possibly exploring or creating a land bank in your community? That'd be great just to hear that, so we can learn too.
Thanks, Tarek. That's a great suggestion. Well, I know we weren't that super clear because I rushed through that in an effort to get us to 2 o'clock. But if there are no questions, we'll be around. We're going to stick on the line. If folks have questions, we're here. But if not, we will be sharing the recording and the slide deck. And again, kind of that sneak peek application information to the group that has RSVP'd for these webinars. So we appreciate you taking these couple hours out of your day to learn more about land banking in New Jersey, and for the interest that you have expressed thus far in potentially pursuing a land bank in your community.
I think everyone is going to start a land bank. I think that's really that's the takeaway.
Love it.
I have a question whenever you're ready.
Please.
So going back to the question of like, what special powers do a land bank have? So I'm in Camden. So, for us, one of the biggest issues has been acquisition. So, I saw that in the slides from last time, tax foreclosure was one of the main acquisition pieces, which we do that now as a nonprofit. And then today you mentioned getting vacant properties from the city is one of the main ways that you acquire. So I guess I'm trying to think, like, for us, what we really need is some sort of expedited process for acquisition, be that from the city or anybody. Properties that have liens and nobody's touching, things like that. And I'm also thinking, so I guess that's kind of one piece. And the other question is, I'm thinking of the need to have the municipal support, I guess, which I'm hoping we would get, but one of the reasons we have so many vacant properties is because it's kind of an issue that the city isn't necessarily touching, I guess. So it's kind of like we need that support, but also it would be hard to, I don't know if it's hard to get or not, but anyway, I'll just stick to the first question.
Sure, thanks, Mike. So in New Jersey, it's interesting, the land bank law allows for the municipality to grant kind of any powers it has to the land bank, and it's kind of a appointing of the land bank and through that agreement.
Mhm.
And so you're right, and a land bank could potentially function in a similar way that a CDC is working if the city is actually passing along those properties to the land bank through that acquisition pipeline. So What Newark has done is established kind of that process of selecting properties to send to the land bank and then giving the land bank the authority to determine what the end and best use is. There are also opportunities in the Newark Land Bank law for different funding mechanisms that a CDC or a nonprofit might not have on its own, in terms of like tax recapture and receiving money from other sources. And so the real benefit of the land bank is that it is kind of this quasi-public entity that has that forward-facing view of really having the community goals in mind and can operate at the city level. And so so those are just some initial thoughts of how the land bank can operate. And Tarek and Martha, feel free to add your thoughts and kind of where you've really seen the benefit come into play. And as Martha shared, it is often at that disposition level as well, to be able to have a kind of that one-stop shop for CDCs to access properties, for residents, for local contractors to access properties in a way that's super transparent and efficient. And the land bank could potentially receive some philanthropic funding that's helped to support a number of the really successful programs that the Newark Land Bank has been able to implement.
I just want to add that we have the opportunity to be really specific, really focus in what we want to do. We have the opportunity to drive our program in a way that, that gets us to where we want to get faster and in a more efficient manner. Some of the things that we do in reaching out the community, for example, we started a series of workshops to have our community learn more about homeownership, and that has really been, they're really been successful. People are, showing interest on wanting to become homeowners, and I think it's not enough just to have the properties available if people are not able to buy them. So we need to also educate our community and provide, ways in which to facilitate these processes for them. So I think that being intentional in the work that we do, it's easier for land bank to do than for a municipality to do itself.
So
Yeah. If I can just also answer that, and then I think it was Bridget, were you jumping on? Mike, I also think it's a question of governments, and I served 8 years in local governments. We are notorious for being extremely poor managers of land. It's just, sometimes you can see land fractioned between many departments. We spend the least amount of money possible to maintain it, if at all. And we're not thinking proactively about how land, such a valuable asset, can be put into community use that advances neighborhood priorities. So, the land bank, if you think about it in that context, it's changing the form of governance, right? And that we are making a recommitment to maximize and optimizing, again, the community's second greatest asset, its land, to achieve a healthier, more vibrant and inclusive community. And building that capacity and expertise is so important, particularly as the markets are very weak, and you have a lot of properties that can create nuisances. On the other end, even where there's strong markets, like in Miami, the public land is used as poker chips for politicians, right? And there is just one scheme after another. So the conversations down there are about building, a very highly transparent, accountable entity that's going to put public land to public good and remove it from that. Obviously, you can imagine that it hasn't advanced as quickly as they would like, because politicians don't like to give up that, the power. But it really is about rethinking governance and an approach to land. I'd say the other benefit is that in New Jersey, and where outside of New Jersey, land banks can actually intervene in that tax foreclosure process, jump ahead of all the speculators at an auction, right? That used to be the case. Now with the Supreme Court ruling, that makes it a little more challenging. But in New Jersey, the land bank could purchase the entire digest of tax liens. A nonprofit, I don't think, would necessarily want to be saddled with that, nor would it want to be saddled with maybe 100 or 50, 150 properties transferred over in a tranche, right? And the nonprofits typically have to be very more careful about their finances. Let's do one transaction at a time, one project at a time. So I would say those are some of the benefits too, that New Jersey Land Bank would bring to a community. And then I want to, yes, absolutely, a nonprofit can be identified as a land bank, but as the land bank entity, it's the government's then also making the commitment to infuse it with funding, hopefully, right, and build that capacity and expertise. I will turn it. Thank you, Sarah. I believe, was it Bridget? Were you wanting to? Okay,
Yeah,
please.
so I wanted to kind of echo or kind of follow up on Mike's question. Also, Bridget of Camden. Do you guys have any experiences or any real scenarios where existing land bank institutions through advocacy and through just more community kind of involvement began to elevate the prioritization of acquiring vacant land, vacant buildings? So we have an existing land bank institution here in the city, which is a Camden Redevelopment Agency. Selena Robinson Rivera is with us, as a matter of fact, representing CRA. And so just wondering, do we create a new entity, or do we figure out how, we can create energy around resurrecting what's already here? And resurrecting is probably not the best word to use, but just, we had a meeting, I think a week or two ago, just to think through our strategy and our approach. So just wondering, if that's my question, have you had a scenario where there was an existing land bank and because of advocacy, we're able to kind of change the impact and the prioritization of that institution's ability to acquire and convey vacant land?
So Bridget, did you say that there was a land bank before the land banking law?
Yeah, there's the Camden Redevelopment Agency. Selena, you want to follow up?
Yes, and this might sound a little bit familiar from the first session. I did raise that question, and I believe I was told that there are some nuances, but I tell you, Martha and I should be working in the same place, because exactly how she expressed the way they conduct business there is how the redevelopment agency conveys land. The difference, though, is our application fee. It's not $50 or $150, but it's not very expensive either. And we do have a relationship with the local nonprofits as well as the municipality, where, just as Tariq said, the properties will be conveyed and held in our possession as part of our redevelopment agency authorities, and we'll reserve them until the nonprofit is ready to develop them. But we are not the best land keepers. We do recognize that is also a challenge. But there is the benefit of the nonprofits not necessarily having to pay those holding costs. And so that was a question I had about whether or not this new land bank legislation gives the land bank, the newly established land bank, the ability to not pay taxes while they're holding the land.
Yes, the land bank, any property held by a land bank created pursuant to the New Jersey Land Bank Act would be tax exempt. But Selena, you bring up a great point, and that is, in Pennsylvania, for instance, what was it, Liz, like 2/3 of the land banks created are actually just redevelopment authorities, existing redevelopment authorities that were designated as that municipality or county's land bank. Right, so it's basically just a few additional powers that were granted under the Land Bank Act were basically added now to their organizational mission. And what I would say is that we typically have seen, redevelopment authorities probably have not been heavily involved in neighborhood revitalization, right? And they're more have served traditionally as an economic development entity, taking on the larger projects, larger commercial projects, maybe in a particular area downtown. So, we've always seen that the projects itself and the nature of the mission is a bit different. Whereas land banks typically across the country are very much involved in that residential neighborhood revitalization and addressing the vacancy there.
That
If
is
you
something. I'm
please
sorry.
go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt. That is something that we do here in Camden. We're 21 neighborhoods, and many of them have redevelopment plans, and we have initially started them with neighborhood wide, but then in Parkside, for example, Bridget would monitor that. Mike Morgan and Carlos Morales from Heart of Camden, who are on this call, they monitor Waterfront South with the support and collaboration of the team. And then I saw others from Camden, East Camden, for example, but there are still pockets of the city that do not have redevelopment plans, and so that we're not that intimately involved, but we are working toward that end.
Mm-hmm. So we have a part of this work in New Jersey. We also have legal experts. You could see Sarah is chiming in with some clarifying statements. So I don't know if she would want to add anything, but I mean, we are still learning so many different statutes in New Jersey, because as Liz said, a municipality can actually grant a land bank a number of different municipal powers into that land bank agreement. We haven't seen that before. So we also have to come up to speed on basically every other statute that might be implicated in that power. So I'm going to turn it over to Sarah, and she can correct anything I said wrong.
And we can't see her comment. Sarah, please share.
Hi there. Hello, everyone. Good to be with you. Sarah Touring, zooming in from Atlanta. And I'm just so honored to have been getting to know Martha and the team at Invest, and really excited for what y'all are doing in New Jersey. Yeah, just wanted to know, I've worked with land banks and been a part of drafting land bank statutes around the country. And the devil is in the details sometimes when it comes to, in New Jersey, I think the agreement between the municipality and the land banking entity. So for example, and I'm not a New Jersey lawyer, I'm a Georgia lawyer, but the land bank statute in New Jersey authorizes tax exemption on land bank properties if so authorized in the land bank agreement. So just wanted to note that small detail, which could be a big detail at some point, depending on how many parcels you're dealing with, but really establishing that relationship at the beginning through a thoughtful agreement, I think is going to be important for New Jersey communities.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And that's, I mean, sometimes states that we've been in, and once one municipality passes like a local ordinance creating a municipality, it's just copy and paste. Because it's really about the policies, it's really about, the inventory, the priorities, who are you going to transfer to, end uses. In New Jersey, it's very different. It is that land bank agreement defines everything. And so it will be careful conversations with local municipalities as to what is included, because that will really drive the amount of power you have and also the focus.
And so to the conversation that's happening, I think that's a perfect example of conducting that like preliminary assessment of like, what are the policies and tools that you all have access to? Who's doing this work? Does a land bank make sense? Does it make sense to reinvigorate the community development agency to serve in that role? We certainly advocate that duplicative efforts, especially in the space of dealing with vacancy and abandonment when there's not a lot of resources, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And so if we could be helpful to your group and thinking through that and looking at some of the legal frameworks that you all are operating under, and whether or not a land bank's needed or whether or not there could be some opportunities elsewhere, that could be part of this scholarship opportunity.
You probably mentioned this already, but how many scholarship opportunities are there?
We have two.
Two.
Mhm.
Okay, got it.
Are there any other questions from anybody on the call or folks outside of Camden that are, again, I want to repost Tarek's question of like, after hearing Martha's presentation, is there anything that either sparked additional interest in land banking or was a little bit cause for concern of like, is this something that we should be pursuing, given the great work that Newark Land Bank has done and also the capacity behind it.
One thing that stands out for me is the website. We also have a website on it which speaks about, it's called real estate, and that shows the entire land inventory. But like Martha mentioned, we retain properties that we have even sold. And it becomes a little confusing for people because they want to know why we still have properties on it if they're no longer available. And so they really prefer that we delete it, but we never took that approach. It was interesting to hear that it's a practice that others do too. So I was wondering why you Newark chose to keep their properties listed as well, even after they have.
We are required to do it.
Okay.
The legislation says we have to keep our inventory on the website. But what we do is we have people could search. So in the new website, because it is confusing. That's one of the reasons why we're redesigning what we have. We will have, you know, that clear when you come in, properties available. So you'll see what's available. And then if you want to go, you know, through the entire inventory, you can do so, you know, and you can see what's what we have had at any point in time. But we will make it clear what's available for sale. And that's what people are ultimately interested in. They don't want to come on their website and look at all that we have in the inventory, or, you know, that we have disposed of or anything like that. So they just want to see what's available, and that's how we're going to do it. So I totally agree with that. It's been a complaint, you know, about it's confusing. I don't see the properties, but it's open for sale. So we're trying to make that better.
Thank you.
Well, if there are no other questions, no, you can reach out to any of us at any time. Our contact information, Matt's and my contact information is included in the scholarship application. So if you have questions about that process, please feel free to reach out. As Martha shared, and she'll share her contact information as part of the slide deck when that's shared with the group. But we hope to see applications from a lot of you on this call, and look forward to reading about your interest in land banking and hopefully working with you in the future in terms of exploring or implementing a land bank in your community. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks, Martha.
Thanks,
Great.
everyone.
For having me. Bye.